Welcome back, everybody, to your friendly neighborhood Spider-Sember. I'm Hunter Farris Schink, and welcome to the Film Talk Podcast.
All right, as he said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Film Talk Spider-Sember. We have made it finally to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Oh boy, I got stuff to say about this movie. Before we get in, Hunter, how are you doing today, my guy? Or as much as today since last time we filmed?
Yes. So for anybody who didn't see the previous episode, the last we filmed the earlier episode earlier today. Things are good. Things are good. Not
Oh,
much
that
to
is good.
say. Just finished releasing my 12 TikToks for the day. Just got my tickets for Spider-Man No Way Home, and applied to work at the theater near my house.
That is awesome. It's really good. I hope you get the job.
Yeah, it's like 2 miles. It's like 2 miles away. Hopefully it'll be the kind of thing where I can just walk to work.
That would be very ideal. At least it's not like 36 miles
Considering I don't
away
have
and
a
you have
car,
to
that would
drive
be
for like
extremely
40 minutes.
gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a fun existence. All right. So, so this is going to be a very like unpopular thing, at least in terms of the two of us that I want to do. But I want to talk about the stuff that at least I personally didn't like first. That way we can end the episode on all the positives, all the happy and upbeat stuff. But I've got some stuff to say about the stuff I didn't much like. So I'm gonna sound like a hater, and that's gonna be expected.
Before you do,
All right.
before you do, let's get a quick synopsis of the film.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot about that. All right. So in this film, we follow Peter Parker, Spider-Man, to be as he does Spider-Man things like usual. At the end of the last film, he broke up with Gwen Stacy because her dad asked him to, and the entire this film is just him and Gwen trying to figure out can they be together or can they not be together in the wake of what her dad made Peter promise. During this whole thing, we see the creation of Electro. One Max Dillon falls into a pit of electric eels and becomes Dr. Manhattan, but Marvel, and gains the ability to gains the power of electricity. He can teleport through electricity. He can shoot electricity through people. Your basic Electric Man stuff. We also are introduced to the character of Harry Osborn. I don't know who plays him in this film, but he is dying of what I don't think they called it in the film, but I'm pretty sure that its name is the Goblin disease. Um, and in the film we see that it killed his father, and it's killing him now too. It's a genetic thing that they both have, and it looks like it's turning them into some sort of monster or goblin, but also killing them, which is weird. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And throughout the film, we see Harry Osborn presented with this information, coming to the conclusion that he needs Spider-Man's blood to cure him. Um, uh, I guess. So he spends the movie trying to get Spider-Man to give him his blood, and once Spider-Man comes in and says he won't give him his blood, he gets upset. He goes and he keeps searching. He finds out that Oscorp does have something that he thinks will cure his disease, but it ends up turning him into the Green Goblin or Hobgoblin, New Goblin. I don't know what they called him in this movie. But from there he goes on a
They
rampage.
never actually give him a name here.
They don't. Oh, that is interesting. From there he goes on
They
to.
also Harry Osborn in Spider-Man 3, though he jokingly is called a Goblin Jr. once. Well, derisively called Goblin Jr. I don't think that's like a code name. It's
Right.
a sarcastic sort of name. It's kind of like calling a nerd Four Eyes and assuming that makes him that's his code name.
Right, exactly. But anyway, we get to there's a final battle between Spider-Man and Electro. Gwen is helping Spider-Man. They save the day. They kill Electro. Yay! And then the Goblin comes in just to screw everything up and drops Gwen Stacy down a clock tower, which leads to her inevitable death. Spoilers, but you know what to expect coming into these videos. Peter goes to try to catch her. He can't catch her in time. There's a lot of debate about what happens, but what I think happens is she smacks her head off the ground, and she dies. And then we get basic end of movie stuff. Montage of him standing at her grave. Then a big fight with Rhino that ends before the fight begins. And we see Harry Osborn and some other guy who I don't remember at all. I just know he wears a fedora and is creepy looking, talking about the Sinister Six. So that's a basic synopsis of the plot. I know I missed a lot, but that's Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Peter's dad is a secret agent in this.
I told
about that.
Told you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm gonna start off. Real quick with.
He's still a scientist. He's still obviously a scientist, but he clearly has the abilities of a secret agent in this version.
Oh, I forgot that plot line existed in this movie because it was so inconsequential to anything. Like, it closed out Peter's arc of trying to figure out who his father was, but it provided absolutely nothing else to the story outside of that closure for Peter, which can be good on its own. But in a story that's juggling so many plot points like this one did, I think it was out of place. If I'm gonna be 100% honest with you.
For context, that guy with the fedora is called the Gentleman. Basically, gosh, how do I describe this? He's a criminal broker. He gathers criminals together for criminal activity, and I don't really know how to describe who Gustav Fierce is, partly because he doesn't have that many appearances. I think he only appears in one issue, but
Gotcha.
That can't be right. He appears in way more than that. He appears in 5 issues.
Oh, that's
This guy doesn't have much, but his wiki article is still too dense for me to skim now and answer that question of who is this guy.
Gotcha.
He's also the guy from the post-credits scene of The Amazing Spider-Man 1
Right.
who asked, "Did you tell him the truth about the boy's father?"
Right. And so, yeah, I did not know who that was from the comics or at all. Which I guess is kind of, I don't know. It's a theme about this movie in that, at least for his plotline and Peter's dad's plotline, they're two parts from the comics that barely made an appearance but were center points of this movie. Which I don't know. I think The Gentleman worked in the sense that he did what he was supposed to do, and we don't know anything more than that. Whereas I don't think Peter's dad's plotline worked for me, because not only did we not need to know any of this, none of this was that important on the story, but it also felt, I don't know, like it didn't belong. And I don't know. I'm trying my best to not be negative about this movie, because I honestly went in with an open mind. I knew all the hate that comes at this movie from the fans, so I thought I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna have a good time, and I did. I enjoyed this movie, but I don't think with my own scaling, I don't think it was a good movie. There are aspects of it that I thought were really good, but the aspects that were not good really weighed the film down. But before we get into that, I want to know one thing that you liked about this movie, so we can balance out my negativity with your positivity.
Okay. The visuals in this movie are really freaking cool.
I agree.
Oh my god, so cool. From the opening shot, literally the first shot of the movie is the inside of a watch as we zoom out, and see the entire so cool. Both of the Electro fights are so cool. The Electro characters, not the character design, the way Electro moves, so cool. The spider scene, so cool, like visually. The way Gwen falls down the clock tower. Even Harry Osborn's character design. It looks a little bit. Also looks cool. Like I just feel like the entire movie looks cool. That's like my big one favorite thing about it. That like I could take any scene of this movie, watch that one scene, and be like, okay, that was good. That was cool. Text. I don't need plot. I don't need themes. I got cool visuals. But there
Gotcha.
are other things that I really like. We'll get into that in a bit. So what's one thing that you absolutely hated from? Wait. Did like? Are you going to count? Are you going to count Richard Parker's quote unquote storyline as a thing that you hated from this movie?
Um, I don't know. So my relationship with that storyline is that it was unnecessary but done well. I liked the like if this was a spy movie, that whole storyline would have been done really freaking well. Like it was very well set up, very well paced. It was very good, but it didn't fit for me. It doesn't feel like a Spider-Man like storyline. It feels like something you'd see in a Nick Fury movie. With that being said,
And
though,
in the Ultimate Comics, Richard Parker was hired by Nick.
exactly. But in the Ultimate Comics, we didn't get much, if any, Richard Parker secret agent. It was definitely not as prevalent as it is in this movie. So I guess you can say it's something I didn't
Oh
like
yeah,
about the
literally.
movie. Not that it wasn't done well, but because it didn't fit with the movie that it was trying to fit into,
Oh yeah.
nor with the
Oh yeah.
character that they are trying to make.
On that topic, so there is a deleted alternate ending that you can find on YouTube, and that worked better. You might have liked that Richard Parker storyline a little bit more if they had used this ending where Peter is at Gwen's gravestone.
Okay.
Stone, and hears a voice behind him, and it's Richard Parker.
Hmm.
And, and like, no, you're not my dad. My dad died in a plane crash, and has this breakdown as he cries into his dad's shoulder and realizes, no, this actually is my dad. And gets a brief pep talk from his dad about the importance of doing what you can who need help.
Wow. Okay. I have to go watch this scene as soon as we're done here. Oh my gosh. That I don't know. The scene in and of itself, it's already bringing me to tears. Good lord. Um I don't but I don't know how well it would have fit with the movie. It was definitely fit for a setup, but like just based on the fact that I don't think that the storyline worked in this movie, I don't think that would have done much to save it. It might have even held it back a little bit, if you know what I mean. The storyline would have held
I,
back the scene, not the
I
scene held
still
back the
do
storyline.
I still do think, yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie, and it could use some paring down,
Definitely. I think
and,
that the whole
and
thing.
that could
Oh,
be
go ahead.
pared down. One thing that could be pared down, they could have included Richard Parker's storyline in a different movie if they wanted
Agreed.
to. I'm nice for Peter to get that closure though, considering this did turn out to be the last. Um, Considering this did turn out to be the last Amazing Spider-Man movie, I'm glad Peter got that kind of closure.
Right. This is off topic for a second, but depending on the success of No Way Home, I kind of want to see one more movie with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Not together, one more Spider-Man and one more Amazing Spider-Man. Close out Andrew's story as well as give Tobey his 20 years later, he's at the end of his career showing us like he is this is the end of his story, and maybe introduce someone like Spider Gwen or Miles Morales to take over from Toby in that movie. Will we get it? Probably not. Would it be nice? I think so. I think it would really add an extra dynamic to each of these stories. Even if it's just Andrew, I think his character and his performance really deserves one last go of his own solo movie. And then don't bring in Mary Jane for Andrew Garfield. Bring in someone like Liz, like from Tom Holland, or Betty Brant, or another one of Spider-Man's love. Bring in Silk. Let Andrew Garfield be the one to introduce Silk, Cindy Moon, into the equation. I think that would be so cool.
I know a lot of people want a story. I would really like, if they can pull it off, for it to be a conclusion to Tom's high school trilogy, Toby's trilogy, and Andrew's kind of trilogy. For it to conclude all three storylines, if they can pull it off, and if Toby and Andrew are in the film.
Right. Um, and that still seems like a lot because I'm criticizing this movie for having a lot of plot lines, but No Way Home has no Way Home has Peter breaking the multiverse, all the villains coming into his world, his identity being revealed to the public, and then on top of that, it might then have to juggle the ending of Andrew's story and the ending of Toby's story. And I don't know.
Oh, I'm not saying that it can.
Right.
I'm not saying that it can. I'm just saying that it would be cool if it did.
Right. But don't forget, Sony has had a not so great track record of juggling a lot of stories, a lot of plot lines in one movie, as we've seen from Spider-Man 3 and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not the best track record, but with Marvel's help, maybe they could. I don't know. We have to wait. At least we have to wait one more week, and then we'll officially see what's going to happen. But no, I think Andrew should have a third movie, even if it's just Andrew of the two, because his performance as Spider-Man really works, I believe. And now that I've seen both of them, I can confidently say that Andrew is my favorite Spider-Man. Not my favorite Peter Parker, my favorite Spider-Man.
There was a thing. I was about to say a thing. Right, along the lines of that deleted scene ending. I really do hope you go watch it because, what's the phrase? I really do hope you go watch it because Andrew Garfield's acting is it is perhaps the single best bit of acting I've ever seen Andrew Garfield do in the 4 movies I've ever seen him in. But his acting is incredible in that scene.
Even better than Gwen Stacy's death? Because I thought that acting was wow. Okay, because he is he's
it's the same. Good. It's the same, so much more nuance and so much more emotion because this isn't 6 months of emotion. This is 10 years of emotion that he's bringing into it. It's incredible.
Right. And so now that we have that all out of the way, and we are going to get into all the stuff that we loved about this movie in just a couple minutes. But I do need to get a bunch of stuff off my chest. The whole story with Harry Osborn and the Green Goblin, if I were allowed to edit this movie, it'd be gone. Every scene with Harry, the introduction of Harry, his character in general, I do not like it. I do not like the actor. I do not like the performance, the line reading, none of it. The visuals for the Hobgoblin, I'm going to call him the Hobgoblin because he doesn't even feel like a Green Goblin. But his visuals in the end of the movie, I did not like it. It just looked not good. It looked bad to me. I would cut all that out. It just feels like it's too much on this story. Not to mention that it feels like it's getting in the way. Now, we'd have to figure out a different way for Electro to break out. I think that's fairly easy to do. But I'm not going to try right now because that would require a couple minutes of me just sitting here and thinking. But there is a very easy way to figure out Electro's escape. I don't know, maybe have one of the cables on the gurney thing be loose, and then he can somehow get his elbow to it, and then he sucks up some energy that way. But anyway, Harry Osborn storyline,
I will
I
agree
did
with you
not
on
like.
that one. That again, this movie had a lot of stuff in it. There could easily be some stuff taken out of it, and I didn't really connect with every storyline. I connected with some with the Peter and Harry storyline,
Right.
but not so much with the Peter and Green Goblin story. Like, not as much. I didn't really connect with the Peter and Gwen storyline for that
Really?
matter. But like the Spider-Man and Electro storyline, I was like, yes, you nailed it.
I agree.
And you said, really, you didn't connect that. And that's kind of the point that different people connect with different storylines. And I kind of love this movie gave us like 4 or 5 different storylines that everybody will connect with something in this movie.
Right. And now,
Like,
like,
even if you
okay,
don't get like enough of any one storyline, you're still gonna get something that you like.
right. And now, I still think that introducing Harry was a good idea. But I think they rushed him turning into the Goblin. I think they should have introduced him in this film and kept him as like Peter's friend and kept his storyline in the background like they did in the original Spider-Man trilogy. We see him in like some scenes where he's like starting to develop symptoms of his sickness. We see Norman Osborn's death, but we don't see Harry turn into the Green Goblin until the next movie, if there was a next movie. But we cut out the complete ending. Gwen survives. I think it should have. It's important that Gwen should have survived this movie. I like how they did her death, and I love that it was Peter's fault almost that she died, but it was also kind of her fault because she refused to take Peter's advice and leave. But if she had left, Peter would have died. I like that. However, if we take Goblin's storyline out of this, Gwen survives, and I think that's beneficial to a story in the next movie. Because in the next movie, you could have had they are back together for the first portion of the movie, and we get like they've been together for a while, and their relationship is strong, and we see them working together as a team. She could be his man in the chair, to quote from Ned. She could be helping him on his missions, helping him build his suits, be his eyes and ears. All right.
And she becomes Spider Gwen.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going.
Wait,
Um,
really?
I'm dead serious. That's where I was going.
Because
I
I really okay, so like we've joked before about like Spider-Man
right.
or Spider-Man coming into this movie. I would love to see Emma Stone playing Spider Gwen in No
I
Way Home.
agree. I definitely agree. I want to see that. But even if we don't, I don't know. But anyway, because I want to see, I would have wanted to see in Spider-Man 3, like they're working together, they're a team, and then about the midpoint of the movie, I want, I want to hear that she contracts cancer because in as we talked about yesterday, one of Peter's things is he gives people cancer just being around them, especially because of his bodily fluids. And so I want that to be a thing. Like she gets cancer, and Peter starts to feel so bad that he goes to the lab and he starts researching what Harry has been telling him throughout the movie about a blood transfusion, and he wants to see if it's going to work. And so he's researching it, and all the time Harry is talking about he needs Spider-Man's blood, a blood transfusion. Move that storyline to this film. And eventually, Spider Man comes to the conclusion that it will not work, but he's found something better that will help Gwen. He basically invents the cure for cancer using his blood. And so it's not like a blood injection, it's some science mumbo jumbo. He gives it to Gwen, and it gives Gwen powers. The cancer is still there, but the powers are overpowering the cancer, to kind of like with Jane Foster, Thor, to a point where she is now like she's fighting the cancer, but is also Spider Gwen. And then Harry hears about this and finds out that Peter and Spider Man are the same person and gets mad that he focused more on creating a cure for his girlfriend than his best friend, and then finds the goblin, like the serum in the basement, becomes the Hobgoblin. I think that would have worked so much better for both Gwen Stacy's story and for Harry Osborn's story. Because then you have an entire film to dedicate to that one storyline rather than two. That was a tangent and a half.
So
Holy crap.
it sounds like you want the Amazing Spider-Man 3 to be about
I'm sorry, you cut
Did you
off
lose me?
there.
So it sounds like you want the Amazing Spider-Man 3 to be about Peter's blood.
I, I guess. I guess a better way to say it to not sound like a vampire almost would be it would be about
No,
kind of.
the reason why I say that is because if we can afford, make it a Morbius movie.
Oh, that would. I don't.
Like make Morbius and Harry both in the same movie,
The thing is,
just so we lean into the blood thing.
that would be
Or
cool.
yet, change Harry to
Oh,
Morbius.
that would be cool too.
There are only two things that actually bug me about this movie. The first is that Harry, as a supervillain, is Morbius. A problem? I'm just like, then just call him Morbius!
Gotcha.
Like, why are we beating around the bush here? He has the same motivation, the same goals, not quite the same powers, but clearly Morbius.
Right. That's actually a good idea. And so an idea that just sparked in my head was either he can be Harry Osborn, who is then adopted by Michael Morbius, so his name then becomes Harry Morbius, which sounds weird, but then it would allow us to turn Harry into Morbius, the living vampire, without him having to take on another name. Or when he becomes the vampire, have like the doctor who is like working on him be named Michael Morbius, and like he kills the doctor and rips off his name tag or something, looks down, sees the name Morbius, and thinks it looks cool, and then he calls himself Morbius going forward. I like the first idea more than I like the second idea, but I think the second idea would still work. And then we could have it be a Morbius movie, like have Morbius as the villain, but not feel bloated.
Make the whole thing about Peter's blood. The
Yes.
only other thing that actually does bug me about this movie, and like, I'm gonna say that something bugs me about a movie. It really bugs me.
All right.
I want this movie to be called The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Ooh. Oh, okay,
Was
okay.
announced like ever since The Amazing Spider-Man was announced in 2011. Like for 10 years I've been thinking, okay, cool. So I want the next one to be called The Spectacular Spider-Man and the third one to be called The and then they just
Okay.
decided to call it The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Well, technically, it's called The Amazing Spider-Man 2 something Electro. Like there is a tagline to that movie that nobody remembers. It's like The Rise of Electro or something. And I found that looking up logos and stuff for the movie. Let's see if I can pull it up. Um it's a very something very strange, but it's something like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 Rise of Electro or what or something.
I'm snooping around for it because I've never heard this. It is entirely possible.
Let's see. And it's also possible that it's just like a fan made thing. I don't think it is, though, but it could be. Amazing Spider Man. Come on. Stop that. Oh my goodness, my computer is freaking out. Two. Nice. Okay,
Right, I forgot that.
it.
Man. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I searched up Amazing Spider Man 2, and the first thing that it showed me underneath it was Rise of Electro. So, I don't know if it's just something that everybody wanted to be the name and it wasn't the name, but oh no, it's on the 4K Ultra box art. It's on the box. What? Is this a fan made box art? Like here, I will send you this not a link, but like this is what I searched in the Google search bar, or what popped up in the Google search bar, and then you'll see it's like a 4K Ultra box art on here. And then there's other box arts. Some of them don't have the tagline. Some of them do have the tagline. It's so weird. And I can't tell if this is fan made or not.
Probably fan made if it's that inconsistent.
But I mean, the Birds of Prey movie had two completely different titles during like the release and stuff. And I've been seeing some images floating around of the original title being on prints of CDs and stuff, or DVDs or whatever they're called. It's so weird. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. I agree. Whatever like the film that we just pitched should be either the Spectacular Spider-Man or the whatever you said. Oh, I think you said Spectacular or
Sensational Spider-Man.
Sensational. Thank you. Um, However, if we were doing this, I got an idea here. If we were doing that, I think it should have gone the Amazing Spider-Man, the Sensational Spider-Man, the Superior Spider-Man.
But like then you're promising to adapt the Superior Spider-Man story arc.
That's
and
what
like
they do.
that is a different movie. You want Superior Spider-Man on screen, but that is a
Yes.
different movie, and you do have to set that up very differently.
Right, and
We were talking about a lot of like could have been cut out or put into a different movie. Yeah, they already cut out a movie. Like there was probably like 5 hours of movie, most likely.
holy crap.
So, Shailene Woodley and Watson. I don't mean like they were discussing it and thinking, wouldn't it be cool if Shailene Woodley played Mary Jane Watson? She was cast. She she went on set and filmed multiple scenes. And I would have loved to see Shailene Woodley as Mary Jane Watson. She would have rocked that role.
Agreed.
Felicity Jones had
Oh
a
yeah.
lot.
I
Yeah, Felicity Jones' bigger role as Black Cat, and they just cut down a lot of her role. Like they already cut out a lot from this movie.
right. Didn't she only have like 2 scenes in the finished product? She had the one scene at the boardroom and another scene with Harry later. And I think that's all we had of her.
Like Black Cat, Alicia Hardy is in this movie, but she never becomes Black Cat, and I fully expect her to become Black Cat.
Oh, that would be something that would come in a third movie, guaranteed, because fans have been clamoring for Black Cat to make her appearance. I'm hearing rumors that Felicia Hardy is going to be like mentioned in Spider-Man No Way Home for crying out loud. Like they're very few, but the rumors are out there, and I don't think there's any backing evidence. I don't think there's any reason to believe that she's going to be, but it's possible. Like anything's possible, really. Like we're getting Spider-Man plus Doctor Strange
Pretty much.
plus every villain that we know and love from the past almost. It's possible.
Um, Sorry, I closed out of Discord again. Shocker is in this movie.
I'm sorry. What?
Very, very briefly. There's a moment when Spider-Man swings through a dark alleyway, and we see a brief shot of a yellow pair of pants with a red stripe on them, hanging from a clothesline. The Shocker cost movie, Shocker is not in this movie. Like there is just so much in this movie. It's also the longest Spider-Man film.
It is? I would have assumed that one of the MCU ones would have been longer.
Oh, sorry. It was at the time of
Okay.
release the longest Spider-Man.
Because isn't Spider-Man Far From Home like 2.5 hours, somewhere around there? Hasn't that become like the norm for superhero movies at this point?
2 to 2.5 hours is kind of the norm. The longest Spider-Man movie.
Which one is? This one?
The Amazing Spider-Man is the longest Spider-Man movie at 104. However, it will not be the longest Spider-Man movie because No Way Home is 148 minutes.
Ah, that's fun.
It's just
So
that, like, that doesn't count yet. It is not a Spider-Man movie. It will be a Spider-Man movie. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is still the longest Spider-Man movie.
right. Wait. So how long is the Amazing Spider-Man 2? Cause that kind of got cut off.
Oh, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is 142 minutes long. 2 hours and 22 minutes.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Somehow, Far From Home is shorter than Homecoming. I don't understand how that's possible. But I guess it's shorter by like 4 minutes, which not that much time, but in movie time, it's a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
Whew, okay.
it's it's a relatively efficient, fast-paced movie.
Oh,
Relatively.
definitely. Definitely, the MCU really knows how to do movie. I'm gonna be honest, the MCU is really good at when it comes to movies and their runtimes and how they fit all their storylines together. Up to, and this is gonna be controversial, but I think Phase 4 they tripped because Phase 4 hasn't been consistent. They had Black Widow, which was, in my opinion, more of a mediocre Marvel film, which is still pretty good because mediocre Marvel is still really good. It's still good cinema. Uh, then they had the Eternals, which a lot of people think is bottom tier Marvel, that I think is mediocre, pretty decent. They had WandaVision, which started good, ended on not great. Falcon and Winter Soldier started good, got not great. Loki started good, ended amazing. Hawkeye, which has started good, is still really good. And then they have Shang-Chi, which was amazing. And then Spider-Man No Way Home, which is looking to be either really good or the worst. Like, there are people who think this movie is going to be the worst ever, which I hope is not the case, because if that's the case, I'm going to be sad. But Phase 4 just seems like they're kind of tripping over themselves a little bit. And that's sad, because the MCU is really good generally.
I think of movies in terms of good and bad, so I just hadn't really thought about that. I just hadn't
Right.
thought about it that way. Um, there's a thing that okay. So you mentioned that like the Rhino scene, that feels like it should have been a post-credit scene.
Agreed. Yeah, because the weird thing about that scene is it's like Spider-Man comes back into the fray. It definitely fits with the theme of the movie. They never said that he left until that scene. Like there was no mention of him after Gwen's death saying like I'm done or something like that or hanging up the suit. It was just he's gone, now he's back. We didn't get to sit with that for any length of time at the end of the movie. In my opinion, there should have been a scene where he was at her gravestone and he said something like, I can't believe I let this happen. I have no right to wear this mask. Or something similar. I'm not a writer, so I wouldn't know. But some indication that he's going to be hanging up the costume that sits for at least a couple minutes. So then, after the credits roll, we get this scene of the Rhino wrecking the city or whatnot. It would be a longer post-credit scene, but we'd get most of that fight, the literal like non-existent fight that we got. Um, we would get that as a post-credit scene, and it would show like Spider-Man is back. Even though we didn't get to sit with it very long, we got to sit with it for long enough that it made an impact. Whereas in what we got, I didn't feel any impact because we didn't see him hang up the towel. We didn't see him hang up the suit at all. I don't know. You probably have a completely different opinion of that than I do, and I would like to hear that.
So I do really like that you're not just taking it from the perspective of, oh, they introduced a new villain and then never actually got to show us Spider-Man fighting this villain, because it really does look like this scene is sequel bait.
Right.
I think this scene is the trope and the adventure continues, where instead of saying, oh yeah, there's going to be a sequel, they just say, keep doing this for the rest of their lives. This is just who they are.
Right.
We don't have to have a sequel. We can just like imply, yeah, they keep going on adventures. They did this a lot back in the 90s, but like these days, especially during the superhero boom, and the adventure continues is always assumed to be sequel bait.
Right.
Every single time. And I'm not a huge fan of that because I'm like, no. There are very few movies that demand a sequel, and so I prefer to not see the scene from the point of view of sequel bait and see the scene from the point of view of and the adventure continues. And like you said, the point of the scene is that Peter has inspired people in New York to love Spider-Man, and that Peter has to the point that the killer is willing to go risk his life to be like Spider-Man, and so Peter is willing to go save New York out of love for New York.
Right. And I think
Spider-Man 2 about how like, Peter doesn't love New York. In this version, Peter has learned to love New York, and
right.
he's being Spider-Man out of love, and I love that perspective on it. And I will agree with you that like I do think there could have been more along the lines of showing him not being Spider-Man anymore.
It should have at least been at least a one full act of the next movie. That would have been really really beneficial. Because in the original Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi movies, we got to live with Peter as after he put up the mantle. We got to feel what he was feeling. We got to experience it. And in this, it was a passing line, and then he was back in the action. We don't get to spend time with him as just Peter mourning Gwen Stacy's death. We just see him, oh, Gwen dies. He spends pretty much every day at her gravestone, and then he fights the Rhino. We don't get to feel that weight. Also, why did they cut off that Rhino fight? That was gonna be so cool. I wanted to see that fight so badly, but I knew it was gonna be cut off right at the moment of impact, and it just hurt.
Because the fight is not the point. What
I know,
Peter
but it should
will
have
do,
been.
not what he is doing. Showing the fight would be saying Peter is fighting. What they wanted to end this movie off on was Peter will continue.
Right.
Which honestly, to me, makes this movie like a decent ending to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise if you come at it from adventure continues. We know exactly what Peter's going to be doing for the rest of his life. He's going to be fighting bad guys. He's going to be fighting the Sinister Six eventually, but not yet. And he'll probably watch Aunt May die. Probably probably get divorced from Mary Jane, probably have a couple kids with her before they get divorced. Like, he's just going to be the Spider-Man from the comics, basically.
And then he's gonna meet Mephisto, and he's gonna, I don't know, partake in the Clone Saga, and all of that crap. Oh, God. I want to see a movie about the Clone Saga, if we're being honest, even though that storyline sucked. Just because I want to see Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly is cool.
I actually think that'd be really cool too, and I think sure maybe the execution on the storyline wasn't great. I haven't read it. How would I know? But I think it could be done really well in a movie. Okay. Here's a fan theory for you.
All right.
We find out during Secret Invasion that literally every single character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Mephisto.
Oh my God.
That the whole has just been Mephisto playing pretend. Everybody is Mephisto.
Oh gosh, we're becoming new rock stars. No. Oh my God.
Ever since Captain America ever since Iron Man 1, it's just been Mephisto talking to himself for 24 movies and 4 TV.
And then the next movie that we see, or the next show we can see, is just Mephisto in counseling with another Mephisto, trying to work through his trauma. And we can find out that when he was a child, he had 2 siblings, both Mephisto, and 2 parents, both Mephisto, and his parents got into a divorce. And they each married another Mephisto, but the dad's wife, Mephisto, was beating on child Mephisto, and so he grew up with like split personality disorder, and then we find out at the end that it's all just Scott Lang. It's not even Mephisto. It was just Scott Lang the entire time. Yes, Louis. Oh, it's Louis. Louis telling Scott Lang the story, and Scott's just like, "What have you been drinking?"
Okay, something that I absolutely love about this movie. I find there are a lot of superheroes who think with their fists.
Right.
Like, they see a situation and their first question is not, can I punch my way out of this, but how do I punch my way out of this? Which method of punching? And I'm like, okay, I recognize that is cool. That gives us plenty of opportunities for fight scenes. It's a lot of fun. It's a big spectacle. I just those who I can look up to as role models. And so I love it when I get to see superheroes who think with their hearts.
Right.
And the Amazing don't just want to fight evil, but who want to do good.
Right.
And the Amazing Spider-Man 2 does a pretty good job with that.
It does. It does. And I think it does a much better job
Peter
than.
is in the middle. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I think the Amazing Spider-Man 2 does a much better job at tackling the idea of destiny than the original Spider-Man 2 did. Like in the original Spider-Man 2, it seemed like Peter was not allowed to be himself, and in this film, it feels like he is allowed to be Peter Parker. However, he wants to also be Spider-Man. And I don't know. I think the Amazing Spider-Man movie series tackled a lot of what the original trilogy like the themes of the original trilogy tried to tackle. These two films tackled them better, but worse at the same time. And it's weird to think about it that way because they tackled the themes really well in weird ways. But I don't know.
In particular, what is it? Okay, so right at the beginning of the movie, when Peter is stopping the Rhino, yes, he's stopping the Rhino from getting this dangerous MacGuffin.
Right.
And along the way, he pauses for just a moment to talk to a civilian who is clear and make him feel important. Like he is doing something very, very
insanity.
Yeah, that's Max's fault, not
Oh no, I know it's Max's fault.
Out of his sight scene. Later on, when Peter is just like saving this random kid from getting bullied. Sure, my work here is done. I have saved the kid from the bullies. Instead, he reverse bullies the kid. He tries to heal the damage the bullies have done for making this windmill. And Peter comes down to this child's level and shows genuine, sincere appreciation for that windmill in an attempt to heal the kid. And even if it's not to heal the kid, he shows genuine appreciation for the kid in ways that are very Peter. Like, only Spider-Man can talk that way. If you look like where Spider-Man is the perfect person to do that scene. Was reverse bullying the wrong phrase? Is that why you're making that face?
Yes. I thought when you said reverse bullying, I thought you meant he bullied the kid. I was sitting there like, wait, he bullied that kid?
No,
what?
No, he like tries to make up for the damage. But even if it's not like making up for the damage, he still takes a moment to show sincere kid. He's not just saying my work here is done because I've stopped evil, because his work is not done. He stopped evil. He has not done good. Like the first Electro fight, Peter doesn't start by fighting.
Right, he starts by talking.
He starts with conflict resolution and with conflict de-escalation. And with everybody in this entire cinematic universe, Peter is the best single person to show empathy to Electro.
And then the police officer decides to shoot.
Yeah! Like, before the police officer decided to shoot, Peter almost won.
Right.
Through words and empathy. That's all he needed. And, like, I think him being that kind of hero is why the kid was willing to risk his life to be more like Spider-Man, even if just for an instant.
Right. And that's why I think this series tackles themes better than the originals do. Because the originals just based around they were during I think what you said, the superhero renaissance. They wanted to tackle simple themes in simple ways, or complex themes in simple ways. There wasn't much nuance on the surface. If you wanted the nuance, you had to really dig for it. In these movies, the nuance is there. the themes of don't fight, talk first are there, and they're plain to see and they're easy to grasp. Whereas in the original Spider-Man trilogy, the themes weren't this deep. There was a theme of destiny versus personal goals, but it wasn't. They didn't take it too deep. It was always, do I need to be Spider-Man or can I just be myself? There was never that idea of being both at the same time, or at least it wasn't explicit enough that people could really see it without going in and thinking about it a lot. And so that's why I think Mark Webb did a better job on story wise, on theme wise, whereas Sam Raimi, he was spectacle all the way.
I also think Peter being that kind of hero, the kind of hero who tries to do good, not thinks with his heart and starts with his words. I think that shows, like, from the opening scene. Well, not the opening scene, but the first time we see Peter. From the first time we see Peter, he loves people, and specifically, he loves New York.
Right.
He wants people to know that they matter, and I think that's why he comes back at the end, New York, and that's a much healthier approach to Peter than I've ever seen in like any other version. Like I said during the Spider-Man 2 episode, Peter in the comics is not driven by fear and by guilt.
Right.
He spends every day constantly worrying who the next person is that'll die because of him. And I'm like, dude, just go hang up the suit.
Right.
If you're going to take it that way, don't be a hero. But this one, he loves and he wants to help, and he's not doing it out of fear or guilt. And I'm like, no. That is this is an anti-hero. He is stopping evil. This one is doing good.
Right. Now, my question is, like, let's say Spider-Man existed in our world. How would people portray him? Would they be the J. Jonah Jamesons, or would most people be like what we see in the movies? The answer that I can give is they would be J. Jonah Jameson until it benefited them, because people in today's society, not everyone and not a lot of people, but the most vocal people in today's society are crackpots. Not, I would not. That's not a good word. The most vocal and the people that you hear the most from are the people with the loudest of voices, which are usually the most insane opinions, because those are the opinions that get traction, that get headway. Just like with the Daily Bugle, I think that if Spider-Man existed, he would immediately get doxxed until it benefited the person doing the doxing. Because for some reason, and I don't understand it, until you are being saved, the person who is doing the good is in the wrong. And then as soon as you're not being saved, they go back to being in the wrong for some reason. Like J. Jonah Jameson in the Raimi trilogy. I didn't even realize I was making that connection. If you're trying to say anything, you are still muted.
Um, so I've mentioned like 3 times now that it's New York, nobody notices nothing.
Right.
If Spider-Man existed in the real, would not know that he existed. And the reason why I say that is because, have you heard of Captain Sticky?
I have not.
Have you heard of Phoenix?
I don't think so.
Have you heard of Master Legend?
No.
Or Shadowhair? Or Captain Ozone? Or Mr. Extreme? Or Captain Oyster? Or Crimson Fist? Or Zenblade? Or the Watchman? Or Moondragon? Or Terrifica? Or the Viper? Or Dragonheart? Or Zetaman? Or Dark Guardian? Or the Eye of Mountain View?
I've heard of the Watchmen and Moondragon. The Watchmen are a DC property, and Moondragon is the daughter of Drax.
All of those, I just listed 20 real life super.
I'm.
Those are real people.
Are they? Here's my question though: are they superheroes in the sense of they can swing through New York on webs, or they put on a costume and call themselves a superhero and then do regular human stuff?
I'm going to have to do some more, but generally, oh, I forgot metadata. Forgot
Of
her.
course.
Ge- Generally, they are more of the Black Widow, Hawkeye sort of barely empowered, if at all. Phoenix Jones, for example, is a martial artist in Seattle
Okay.
who takes his martial arts powers and uses them for vigilante purposes.
Right.
Metadata, I want to say, is a hacker. She's a hacker. Um, Captain Sticky has some cool gadgets, I think. But yeah, they're the more Black Widow, Hawkeye sort of characters.
And so, knowing that, did people really know who Hawkeye was until he was surrounded by gods and aliens? Or gods and giant green gamma monsters? Nobody knew who
The
Hawkeye
whole
was.
point of Hawkeye is that nobody knew who he was. He straight up
Exactly.
says that in he
Exactly.
straight up says that in Hawkeye.
People won't notice you unless, like, if Spider-Man existed in our world, I'm talking like web shooters, spider sense, climbs up walls and all. He would be known because he's not normal. He's not ordinary. He can swing from buildings. He can hold cars. People would know who he was. And even with comparisons to real world superheroes, which who are just people who know martial arts, who are good at things, who put on costumes and stuff, which is all really a superhero is. Only difference is in our world you don't have superpowers. If you did, though, I think you'd be
Okay.
noticed.
Okay. I'm looking more into these real life superheroes. Specifically, I'm just listing the ones in the United States.
Oh, okay.
More around the world. There are plenty in Japan.
Of course there are.
Um, I just want to highlight some of the good that these people do real quick because I was just talking about heroes who don't just fight evil but do good.
Okay.
He um campaigned against abuses in nursing homes and advocated for consumer rights and supplied information on health insurance fraud to authorities. Um, bit. Sorry, trying to find the right one.
It's all good.
Captain Ozone appeared in a couple grade school PSAs and made a video documentary on environmentalism. Um, Captain Oyster looks for late night crimes to solve through intimidation and intellectual discourse. And that's a quote by intellectual discourse is a quote. Crimson Fist and his wife Metadata help the homeless in their area. Terrifica is a New York City-based woman who patrols bars and parties in an effort to help it, to prevent inebriated women from being taken advantage of by men.
Hmm. So these
Like,
people sound like they're regular people who want to do good and decide like to take up the mantle of a superhero in an attempt to do that good or maybe get their name out there to inspire more good around the world, which is a very noble cause. I don't. It's weird because that's a very noble thing to do, and I applaud each and every person who does that. I'm very happy we have people out there like this. At the same time, though, I wouldn't consider them superheroes. I would consider them heroes, public figures, public
mass
heroes.
vigilante.
That's a perfect term. Vigilante. Even though
Mass
vigilante.
vigilante.
Exactly. Even though it's a very like negative term when it comes to like just in general. Like whenever you think of a vigilante, you think of when you think of a vigilante, you think of Batman. Um, but in general, like a vigilante is somebody who goes against the law to stop people going against the law. It's got very negative connotations, which is why I guess I don't like calling people vigilantes, especially if they're doing good for the world. Uh, I mean, we don't really have a term for people who do good in the name of good, but who also sometimes go against the laws to do so. Which I think we should coin that term. I think we should be the ones to coin that term. So, give me an idea. What's your idea for a term for that?
Uh, Look, what I want to do is redefine hero to only include and everyone else to be anti-heroes, but I feel like any definition of superhero that does not include Spider-Man doesn't count as a definition of
Right.
superhero. Like, Spider-Man is kind of the quintessential superhero, him and Superman, of course. No do-gooders? That's kind of what they were called back in the 60s, the daring do-gooders of... Like, it's a really lame title, I'm sorry. It only really fits in the 6 before we get to more of a name. Two other specific ones. Zeta Man patrols the streets in a minivan in Portland, giving to the homeless. And Dark Guardian is part of a volunteer crime prevention organization called the Guardian Angels. And like you were describing, I feel like the best definition for this type of hero comes from the Viper, a real life superhero from Columbia, Tennessee, who is, quote, just do what was right in tights.
Okay.
That's an actual quote from the Viper.
I'm trying to think of a good, because I don't like the term vigilante. I've expressed this because it has negative connotations brought with it. It's got baggage, and I don't know. Unless we can take back the term vigilante. Oh.
Like, Spider-Man is a vigilante. Phoenix Jones is also a vigilante. Spider-Man is the vigilante, or Crimson Fist are not vigilantes.
Right.
Or the Owl from Miraculous Ladybug. That's probably the best example. Like, the Owl is literally the same thing as metadata from real life.
I don't think I've gotten to that point. I don't think I've met the Owl.
Have you been watching Miraculous Ladybug?
I used to watch it a lot. I think I at least got through one season. I don't know if I've made it very far into season 2. Oh, I'm trying to remember the last episode I watched.
Pretty sure he's in season 2. Okay, so here's the point. Here's the reason why I bring up the Owl. Principal Damocles, the high school characters has been inspired by these superheroes and wants to go be a superhero. And so he goes and puts on a costume and tries to fight crime. He does not have any powers. Speaking of which, some of these real life superheroes, like Shadowhair and the Eye of Mountain View. Like, the Eye of Mountain View has Batman-style gadgets, which makes him just as much of a legitimate superhero as Batman or Superman, except that their gadgets are much more fantastical.
Right.
Anyway,
he needs a better name.
He has no...
to take from Kate Bishop, he needs better branding, because the Eye of something, that's too long. That's too long of a name. I've already forgotten what the name is.
The Eye of Mountain View. He often works with his wife, Lady Mystery, which I'm like, okay, anyway.
Just
point is, so dude has no powers. He has terrible gadgets. Like, he has a grappling gun, but it doesn't work.
Oh my gosh.
Tries to fight crime and can't. And by the end of the episode, he's been talking with the superheroes a lot about superhero work, and decides the best way that is by giving blankets to homeless people, and by working at a soup kitchen, and by just doing the stuff that you and I can do. And that makes one of my favorite superheroes ever. Because most superheroes, you go and see their work and you're like, yeah, but I can't do that. And it doesn't make me want to be a hero. In Spider-Man 2 specifically, powers, he goes and sees stuff that he could do better, that he could do to make the world a better place, and chooses not to because he has no powers. And I'm like, no, but you can still. With the Owl, he shows actual human beings, real world audience members, very specifically, if you want to be a hero, maybe not a superhero, but here's what you do to go be a hero. It's beautiful. He's one of my favorite superheroes because of that, and he's only shown doing that for like 2 minutes. I just, Yeah, I don't know what a good word for it is either.
I guess so. What I'm thinking, and this isn't even a new word. This is just I'm thinking personal hero, and the reason I say that is because they're not. Most of these guys aren't going out and like stopping criminals who are stealing plutonium, or uh, they're not like fighting villains or whatnot. What they're doing is they're helping the community. They're personally helping individuals of their community. And so I guess
How about
it's not even,
community hero then?
that would work. Or uh, I was gonna say like Komiro or something, but that sounds dumb. Uh,
I will say some of these actually are crime fighters.
right.
Phoenix Jones is a crime fighter.
I
Another
wonder.
one.
I wonder how often these people go out and fight crime, and how well it goes for them. Just based on like, do they have guns? And do the criminals have guns? And how do they do? I want to know
Okay,
how these guys do this.
as one very specific example, the mixed martial artist who patrols Seattle, Washington in search for criminal activity in a bulletproof vest and stab plating. Initially wearing a ski mask to intervene in a public assault, Jones later developed a full costume. Shadowhair operates in Milford, Ohio, and he's armed with tasers, pepper spray, and handcuffs. You'll notice if you read through stuff about these, none of them use guns.
Hmm, that's good.
The most lethal stuff they'll use is like pepper spray or a taser or something like that
Gotcha.
because they feel like they feel like there are better ways than killing. My guess of why they don't use guns, and I'm kind of oversimplifying by saying they don't use guns because I haven't looked into it that hard, but I
Right.
really like this idea. I really like these people. Like, these people are doing a good.
I wonder.
And then this is terrible, but I love it.
Okay.
One of these characters went from being a real life superhero to hero.
I'm sorry.
There's an there's an Amazon series based on one of these superhero. Like, there's a superhero movie based on a real. Master Legend was adapted into into Legend of Master Legend.
Of course, that's what the show is called.
Oh my gosh. So Master Legend assists the homeless of Orlando, and he is a member of the Justice Crusaders. Apparently, there is a superhero
Oh my
team. I'm not
word!
rolling my eyes. I love this.
That's
Also,
amazing.
also, and I love this. Notice is based out of Florida.
Who?
Master Legend, the one who was adapted into Legend of Master Legend,
Okay.
he's based out of Florida.
I
He
guarantee
is
you.
Florida man.
I guarantee you there is a hero, if not on that team, who has petitioned to be on that team, named Gator Man.
Florida man?
No, Gator Man.
I would do that.
Who's literally a dude dressed up in a gator costume. You know what? I'm looking that up real quick. I want to see if this exists. Gator Man.
Looking that up too. Justice Crusaders, Real Life Superhero Wiki.
Real life. Let's see.
I'm having trouble finding information about the Justice Crusaders.
Okay, so I think I've found the same Wikipedia article for a list of real life superheroes that you were looking at. Let's see, United States.
Oh, turns out that that Master Legend founded.
Oh.
Now a member of Team Justice.
Okay, so how many members are there? Do you know?
Team Justice, there is Tucker Tornado. That's how to pronounce it. Capes and Master Legend. They're
Okay,
the
so
leaders. There's also Superhero, Lady Hero, Symbiote, and Mr. Claw.
oh my God, there's just
And
a
they have
superhero
a
named.
nemesis!
Who's the nemesis? I gotta hear this.
They have a nemesis named Apathy.
Really creative name works there, guys. Really creative.
Although, wait a minute, they might be fighting the concept of apathy. I can't actually tell from this article.
That is
I'm not laughing because this is ridiculous. I'm laughing because I love it. I'm laughing out of glee.
Oh, I'm laughing because of both. This is both ridiculous and I love it.
I found information on the Justice Crusaders.
Oh, okay, we gotta hear this. We gotta hear this.
The Justice Crusaders, basically just Team Justice, but before Team Justice, it was just Master Legend and Symbiote.
Oh my gosh. So what is? I need to hear more about Symbiote. Like him and Superhero are the two that I really want to know about. Like, does he actually have a?
Symbiote is no longer active.
Aww.
Appears to his picture is of a dude lifting a barbell. So I assume that strength is like part of his thing.
Okay.
But like, I don't. There's one sentence, two sentences. There is one sentence in his wiki article. One. In addition to his longtime partnership doing charitable works with Superhero and Team Justice Inc., Symbiote was an occasional MMA fighter. And now I just like want to go learn as much as I can about these people and make a movie about them.
Oh, that would be awesome.
This is the kind of hero I want to see on screen. How do you adapt the idea of superheroes who do good, not just fight evil? This is it. As for Superhero, because you said that you really want to figure out more about Superhero, I'm just going to read his wiki article from RLS Real Life.
Hang on, just 1 second. I'm on the wiki, and there are multiple more superhero teams, including two that I can see called the Emerald City Heroes organization and Echo.
That's such a cool name.
And they consist of a few superhero characters known as Skyman, the Red Ranger, El Caballero, something, and Dragon. Caballero. Okay. And then just Dragon. One of the characters is just named Dragon.
That's an awesome name.
It is so cool. It is so. This is all.
You would pick the name Dragon too.
Oh, this is all so cool, but it's also ridiculous. But it's cool.
All I knew was Phoenix Jones. And like Darkheart Thunderman is not really like active anymore, and I think it was a joke. I'm not actually sure if Darkheart Thunderman was an actual real life superhero, or if he just or if somebody just made a mockumentary about a guy called Darkheart Thunderman. This Darkheart Thunderman is such a cool name.
I guarantee you there are at least two, real life superheroes who are either just made up for the publicity, or their name is just like an innuendo for something. Like it's impossible to not be. There's gotta be. If we search for long enough, I guarantee you we'll find at least one innuendo name. Even in
Deadpool would.
Oh God.
Okay. Superhero, who is a real life superhero in Clearwater, Florida. Real name. Wait, do we have his real name? We don't have his real name.
I mean, that means his secret identity's working.
This man had a secret identity. He went that hard on it.
Oh, that is so cool.
But the problem is, like, you can't. That's just not a Googleable name. superhero, was a real-life superhero in Clearwater, Florida. He was formerly a member and chairman of the nonprofit organization Team Justice Incorporated. He is deceased.
Aww.
A weightlifter, former pro wrestler, and police academy graduate, he worked in broadcasting when not in his tights. He began using the name Old Superhero to reflect his age and time spent in the real-life superhero community. He patrolled occasionally, but mostly used his nonprofit and broadcaster status to provide support to the other members of the superhero community. And one of the things that I love about this, you mentioned them using their status and their costume to be more recognizable. That's Superman.
Right.
Like, the whole reason Superman wears a costume is that people can look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman, and can inspire other people to do better. He uses his costume for the sake of branding, because he knows if I am
Unlike
known
Hawkeye.
as Superman, then I can do good in the world, being a symbol of hope, and doing things like going on TV to try to persuade people to I can't remember what the story arc was, but like UN as Superman and trying to convince them to find a way to solve world hunger. That was the plot of All-Star Superman. Because he knew that his powers weren't what was going to solve the problem. It was the symbolize that, like, there's the whole thing about do not give your alms before man to be seen of man, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. I'm just also like, they're using they're giving their alms for man for a good reason, to try to inspire other people to give alms before man or not before man, which is just one glad that these people exist.
Okay, so getting back to Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 now, we could always do.
I really do like this movie.
Right. We could always do a video where we just talk about real life superheroes. That's always a possibility. But because this is supposed to be a review of the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yes. Okay. So, what is the thing that you think, like, what's something that actually works for you in this movie?
His suit. Just gonna leave it there. His suit is beautiful in this movie. This is probably my favorite Spider-Man costume that any of these guys have ever worn. This suit is Spider-Man, at least to me, and it's amazing. No pun intended. Now, I do want to say, of all the different Spider-Mans we've had, Tobey, Andrew, and Tom has had the most Spider-Man-esque suits, in the sense of there are many of them and they all look different. Whereas Andrew has had the most Spider-Man suit, where it looks like the suit from the comics the most. Tobey's, I wasn't a big fan of the raised webbing. I'm going to be honest with you. It looked really, really
That's
weird.
fair.
But Andrew's really looks
that
like Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, they nailed.
I really liked it, and this is like it was a massive improvement even over just the first movie's suit, but not to mention, like, it is bright, it's colorful, it looks like Spider-Man. It's got the white eyes instead of the non-existent eyes from the Amazing Spider-Man's one suit, and then you contrast it with Tom's, which is, at least, like, in Andrew's, we can see that even though it's supposed to be form-fitting, there is still movement in the fabric, like there would actually be in real life. Tom's is just like another set of skin, which looks really cool, but it doesn't look as realistic. And I love when superhero movies are more realistic. Not in the sense of dark and gritty, but in the sense of it makes it look like it's something that can actually exist.
I think it's too easy for us to assume that dark and gritty is the same thing as realistic.
Right.
It is, but that's only one part of reality.
Right.
There's so much more. There is light and hope and happiness and rainbows in real life. Butterflies and rainbows are realistic.
Only thing is, unicorns aren't. Unless you subscribe to the theory that all a narwhal is just a unicorn in a whale costume, which I subscribe to, because I want unicorns to actually exist. So I think that they're just narwhals.
All right. One last thing that I really do that I really like about this movie, and I think really works about this movie. I think for the first half or so, okay, there is a trope that I'm not a huge fan of.
All right.
The supervillain monologue. I think supervillain monologues can be done really well, but I think generally it's people saying, hey, think they're the hero of their own story, so let's just give them a supervillain monologue so that they can think they're the hero of their own story. And I'm like, no, they can just think that they're a villain. They can just be a jerk with path to think they're the hero of their own story. They don't have to have any sort of complex, convoluted motivation. They can just be villains, and
Right.
that's really the only reason why I'm not a huge log because I want more villains who don't think they're the hero of their own story.
I agree. I agree.
I
On.
love
Go ahead.
when a villain is the hero of their own story as a reason to give a supervillain monologue and doesn't anyway. Kingpin is a great example of this from Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
Kingpin never gives a supervillain monologues. We know why he wants it. We know what his plan is. He doesn't monologue about it.
Okay.
Electro in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the first half or so is a genuinely empathetic villain. We're trying to go for when they gave supervillain monologues to villains, but he doesn't need a monologue. He just we see why he wants what he wants, and we understand what he wants to the point that like we almost feel bad for him. He's genuinely sympathetic in ways that the supervillain monologue trope is trying to accomplish. Because this movie shows, not tells, why he wants what he wants.
Right. And I don't remember where I was going. Oh, right. Um, I definitely agree. Supervillain monologues, are they're just plot devices. Most of the time, they're not necessary. Most of the time, they're just there because, at least from what I could see, the writers didn't know what to do, so they gave them a villain monologue. I think if you can make a villain is the hero concept and not include a monologue and it worked, then that is a testament to your writing ability. Because monologues, they just seem like the cheapest way out of any given scenario. And I know writing is not easy to begin with. I think villain monologues are the easy route most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Because there are some times where a villain monologue works. Think of Syndrome from The Incredibles. It was used to
I was
further his
about to say
character. Or,
Syndrome is one of the monologues. The Joker,
right.
Mysterio from Far From Home. There are some really good supervillain monologues. Megamind, Doctor
Exactly.
Doofenshmirtz. Those characters are supervillain monologues.
Exactly. But I got
It
one.
just most
I got one that is a supervillain monologue that works because of the trope, because we know that it's a trope. And that one was Savannah from Shazam. And the fact they're both flying and he's monologuing and Shazam's like, "Are you talking to me? You're like a mile away. I can't hear you." And I think that
the other thing that I
right
love.
there, that was perfect. Go ahead.
The other thing that I love about Doctor Zavanna's supervillain monologue is that enhance the tone of the film. The dark but playful tone. Like Dr. Zavanna is using the perfect dark gothic I will crush you under sort of dialogue. It's wonderful. So good for the tone of the movie.
Right.
I just specifically what bugs me is when the supervillain monologue is used as an attempt to be the hero of their own story without anything else. I'm like, well, if you didn't set up your villain as the hero of their own story, then just don't make the villain think they're the hero of their own story.
Right.
Just embrace you did. You don't have to give them a monologue. That's the only thing
Right.
that kind of bugs me about it.
Like not every supervillain needs to be Thanos. Some supervillains can be Doctor Doom. Some villains can want power for power's sake. They don't have to think they're right and be on some spiritual adventure. They can just want the power. Some supervillains just want to cause destruction. So they don't have to have this big philosophy of, oh, if I cause destruction, then you as the hero will step up and you'll do the right thing and you'll be a better person. No, they're just, some villains are just like, I want to go destroy that city. I don't care who you are. I'm going to go blow up that building and kill people. Because that's just how some people are.
To be very specific, and I feel like a lot of the reason for the hero of their own story type of villain, people want to believe that these villains are realistic. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still realistic to have a villain who's just a jerk.
Right.
But now he's a jerk with power, just wants money. Or, for that matter, I found on the Real Life Superheroes Wiki that there's an article of real life supervillains. And I
Oh boy.
don't mean like billionaires or anything like that. I mean people who saw these real life superheroes and decided to become their nemesis.
I do have a question on that whole thing, though. How many of these are just
Go ahead.
like how many of these rivalries are just two people who love superhero media and are like playing it out for the camera, like Megamind versus Metro Man? How many of these aren't really a super villain who wants to take over the world, and they're just like guys who are like, hey, there's a superhero, I'm gonna be his nemesis. I don't actually want to kill anybody, I just think it'd be fun. Because I honestly wonder how many of these situations are like that. They're just two people having fun.
Honestly, some of these do seem like LARPers. Some. Um, for example, Dr. Holocaust.
Oh my gosh.
Stop having such cool names.
Wow, that's so
adopted the look of a mad.
gosh.
Also, like, that's an extremely insane. He adopted the look of a mad scientist with steampunk influences. Or like Jay Creeper adopted the guise of DC's the Joker. He just didn't Joker because he didn't want to get sued. Like, some of them do seem like they could be LARPing. I don't know. Maybe they actually are. And then there's Rex Velvet.
What?
His goal to take down Phoenix Jones.
Okay, so it that one seems like a LARPer.
No, like, the dude made this YouTube video that tried to discredit Phoenix Jones. Oh gosh.
Who's it sound like?
I would not be at all surprised if Captain Sticky was taken down by a real life supervillain.
What do you mean?
Who saw, hey, Captain Sticky is around. He needs to not be around anymore. Let's call him out. Let's get him canceled and preferably thrown in jail. Because Captain Sticky was. Oh, sorry, you were saying something.
Oh, I was asking what happened to Captain Sticky.
Well, his name is sketchy. His name gives you weird vibes.
Right.
Like, either this guy can crawl walls, or he is an extremely sketchy person. Yeah, he was an extremely sketchy person. He rented his house to a film crew shooting pornography. He yeah. I would not be at all surprised if there was a real life supervillain that Captain Sticky was doing this, was like, no, you're not worthy of the mantle of real life superhero. You need to be taken down a notch. I will be a real life supervillain, and I will make sure that you.
That's not a superhero, though. If that's really everything that happened with Captain Sticky, he was not a hero. He was a villain in this sense. So whatever villain took him down, as long as they weren't like killing people, the villain should have been given the title of superhero, because he was actually taking down a not good person. So the role here should have been switched.
The only thing that happened with Captain Sticky. Captain Sticky is kind of one of those, like, Reed Richards, Tony Stark kind of characters who, like, is trying to do good and is a terrible person and is trying. He campaigned against abuses in nursing homes. He supplied information on health insurance frauds to authorities. He advocated for consumer rights. He testified before the Federal Trade Commission in Congress in uniform. Like, Congress allowed him to appear to testify dressed as Captain Sticky, and then it turned out, oh my gosh, this dude who was like who was was also doing some bad stuff. Maybe he shouldn't be a superhero.
You know who this
People can
sounds
be
like?
more than one thing.
You know who this sounds like? Most politicians.
Ooh. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
He should have just been a politician.
Like, I would not be, and I would not be at all surprised if there was a real life supervillain who tried to take Captain Sticky down a notch in the same way as like the boys by revealing the evil. And I think that's what Rex Velvet was doing. Rex Velvet is famous for calling out Phoenix Jones via a well-produced YouTube video by Seattle's Rocket Launch Corp production of Ryan Corey. It's debatable whether or not Rex Velvet can be considered a quote-unquote real life supervillain. It's possible that Phoenix Jones hired Corey for to create an arch nemesis. We don't know. Some of these seem to be lurkers, and some of these seem to be supervillains, and some of these seem to be superheroes. We don't know, and part of that.
And some of these guys have. Yeah, some of these guys have really names like, what is it? Was it Captain Holocaust? Good lord! Oh my! I feel dirty saying that name.
Dr. Holocaust.
Dr. Holocaust. Good lord! I need to go take a shower after that.
He is a villain. But the fact that she decided to take on that name kind of worries me. Also, I just want to point out that like, Lord Mole and Golden Dawn are both the Eye of Doom.
Wait. Eye of... I'm done. These names are too awesome. I can't contain this awesomeness. Oh my goodness. Okay, you know what? To close out this video, we've wrapped up talking about the Amazing Spider-Man 2. There is not much more we can say. We're creating our own superheroes now. We are creating our own real life superheroes. We're doing that. We're doing this now. Okay, so we'll start with you. Create your own real life superhero based around your personality, because I really want to hear this.
Honestly, like, a lot of my purpose in Wholesome Film Talk is kind of the same purpose as real life super concrete. I saw a problem, and I want to fix it. Right. And I want to fix it by doing good in the world. My doing good in the world, the problem that I see is toxic film discourse and a lack of empathy. I guess is empathy. I'm not going to be that pretentious, though. And so the way that I try to fix it is by doing good in the world and saying good about movies and saying good about people who make movies and occasionally, like, calling out actually toxic film discourse. Like, gut, right, death, threats, that's not okay. Gosh, I had a really bad I had a really bad just rant on a live stream once. But, like, that's what I can do. And frankly, I think that's the purpose of real life superheroes, is to be like,
okay,
maybe you can't afford a costume, maybe you can't go out and fight crime, maybe you can't help the homeless, do what you can do anyway. Speaking of which, I need to go to the homeless shelter sometime soon.
Gotcha. All right. So let's come up with a name for you, and let's get you a costume design. So, okay, name.
No. Oh, no. Maybe we need to do this in another episode. I'm thinking... We're already 2 hours into this episode.
No, we're only an hour and a half. We've got time. We've got time.
It's only an hour and a half. Still, I'd rather discuss it in another episode. Sound good?
That sounds good. I had an idea, and I'm trying to rework it, so we'll come up. We'll do that.
This gives you time to rework it then.
All right. So, do you have any last things you want to say about the Amazing Spider-Man 2?
So, when they were making Captain America: Civil War, the directors showed it to a couple different focus groups and kept tweaking the movie until where exactly half the audience was Team Cap and exactly half the audience was Team Iron Man. Thanks for watching. You can box below, and until next time, take care.